Welcome back to the Business Leaders of America podcast, where business leaders come to share their advice and journeys to success with existing and emerging leaders of America. Now, here's your host, Dylan Bloyd.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Business Leaders of America podcast. Today, I'm joined by one of the most impactful product and technology leaders of our time, Michael Cerda. With a career spanning Disney+, Goldman Sachs, Facebook, Vevo, and beyond, Michael has played a defining role in building the platforms, teams, and cultures behind some of the world's most transformative digital experiences. From launching Disney Plus to 100 million subscribers, to scaling Televisa Univision's VIX into a billion-dollar streaming business, to shaping consumer banking at Goldman Sachs with the Apple Card, Michael knows what it takes to build something that lasts. But his story isn't just behind big wins. It's about culture misfits, hard-earned lessons, and the relentless grind behind the scenes that few ever see. Today, he's channeling that experience into his next chapter as the founder of Build Something, a platform helping leaders and companies create with clarity and purpose. We're diving into what it really means to build something that endures, from product strategy to company culture and everything in between. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Dylan. It's great to be here.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, if you could please, take us back to the early days and share how your path unfolded from, sales into shaping some of the most transformative products and cultures of our time.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I started out in sales, literally knocking on doors and getting hung up on, literally.
Yeah.
Uh, but what I really learned in those early years wasn't just the hustle necessary to do that. It was really how to read people and how to, create urgency and how to communicate in a way that kind of cuts through and gets to the chase and gets to the point effectively.
Mm,
Think about yourself and all of the encounters you've had with salespeople.
right.
And half the time you're going like this in your mind, right? Those of you that are only on audio, I'm waving my hand as like, keep going, get to the finish line.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a little bit of an art to that.
Mhm.
But over time, I realized that I didn't want to just sell the products. I wanted to build them. And I felt the way I was selling them as I felt as if I had something to do with building them. I had that much pride.
Yeah.
And when I say sales, I wasn't selling like, you know, retail clothes or something. I mean, I was selling like the kind of equipment that it took to put us as consumers in the driver's seat for the modern day internet.
Yeah.
So I felt very impactful about that. So that took me into a world of, startups where eventually, after working at several of them, I co-founded one, failed fast, got back up. Eventually, I sold one of my startups to MySpace, if you remember MySpace.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, that was the first time I was able to be kind of the entrepreneur in a bigger, older company that needed to like have a big bet to sort of pivot and go forward with.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like I've been doing that ever since. That's where I found my sweet spot. I mean, I went from this like literally guy selling stuff in startups to becoming the guy creating startups to becoming the guy that's creating startups in bigger companies.
Yes.
And there's a it's easy to look back in hindsight and sort of tell you how that stitches together.
Yeah.
At the time, I was making it up as I went though, because I
Right.
was just opportune. But the one thing I'll say is I had an open mind to that uncertainty.
Mm,
And I embraced that uncertainty. And that's part of what was exciting coming up that way is, not knowing what the next step was. And I think that's indeterministic because a lot of careers are shaped by these deterministic steps that one must take. And I know this from my time at Goldman Sachs.
yeah.
I joined as a managing director, but like the people that start entry level out of college and at Goldman Sachs, they know they're an analyst to start, and they're going
Hmm.
to be an associate after that. They're going to be a VP after that, then a managing director, and if they're lucky, a partner. And if they're a partner, they become maybe if they're lucky enough on the management committee or the C-suite. Those are there's very specific things you must do to climb that ladder. And I wasn't climbing that ladder. I was kind of in the business of like seeing if I could build my own kind of ladder.
You're right. Yeah. So your time with Facebook, it was more along the lines of in the book. So for the listeners, I've read the book, and I feel like I just know a lot of everything that you're talking about already. But for their perspective, so when you were at your time at Facebook, in the book, you talk about how one of the guys came up to you and said you guys are almost like a project, like Project A and Project B, right? But it was almost because you were brought in as not somebody who started with the company right out of college. You already had all of this experience, right? So was how much different was that in an environment like Facebook?
Yeah. And by the way, it was super validating to run into that one person that knew
Yeah.
the version of the world that I did.
Right, right.
His name is he's a great guy. He's a great product guy. His name is Ethan Stock, and he's still out here in the Silicon Valley doing stuff. I think he might even be at OpenAI now.
Mm,
But he was, yeah, he and I were both hired as experienced hires at Facebook, and or in other words, we were hired from an industry. Um, that was another way of labeling us, right? Because we didn't grow up there. We didn't come right out of school, go to boot camp and ride the ranks at Facebook. And I believe Facebook was hiring, they were hiring people from certain industries at the time because social networking was seeping into all these other industries anyway. And
hmm.
I think after a few maybe mishaps along the way, they thought they'd hire some people that actually knew something about those industries to be
Right,
there.
yeah.
And so it was a glorious place to be at first because all of the cool, important people wanted to talk to me about the stuff I knew. In that case, I was a video guy. I had just come out of Vevo, um, and had been building and running that for 3.5 years,
Mm,
and scaled that into a big media business. So the Facebook people were like, "Hey, we want to put videos in Facebook in the feed.
yeah,
What do we need to know? Please tell us. How does video work?" Like those were the kinds of conversations.
yeah.
So it was a very exciting place to be in right then.
Hmm.
But as soon as they think they have like the 11 questions answered about what does it take to do video, you're kind of like, you're still hanging around. What are you
Yeah.
still doing? Like, and you know that you're not a part of that club.
Right.
And I think this is something that's super interesting, and it's something that maybe it's easy to say in the world now. It was harder to say before, but
Yeah.
um, we're all of the damage maybe social media has done to society. You kind of it's kind of undeniable now, right? And
Yeah.
and and I say that having played my part in it, right? This
Hmm.
is a for better or worse thing, but that that notion of certain people getting FOMO because they're not included, and they see all their friends at a party that they're not invited to,
Yep.
and so they do something bad to themselves because they're so upset about it, right?
Yeah. Of
Not to that degree, but
course.
similarly, when
Hmm.
working there, I felt like that person. I felt like that person
Wow.
because my coworker, see, when you work at Facebook, you have this version of Facebook that you all work in. Imagine posting work stuff all day
Hmm.
long. It's like you do in Facebook, but it's at work. And so my colleagues would go rent a big house in Sonoma for the weekend and spend the weekend, and well, guess what? The pictures are all uploaded and I see them all. They're all tagged and they're all having a great time. I wasn't invited.
Right.
I was probably 10 years older than my nearest colleague.
Yeah.
Uh, and so we were just in different places in life. I had kids in high school at that time, and I think they were just having newborns, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just getting married and having newborns. So they were in different places. And I think that FOMO thing, ironically, just made itself clear working there, which I
Hmm.
thought was wild. And one of the great things about working there is you get this great food, this great free food, and it's always available.
Yeah.
Nobody's counting the plates or the calories for you. Uh, but it got to a point to where this got so bad for me toward the end. And I don't want to over dramatize it because
No, no, no,
not
for
that I'm
sure.
not feeling sorry for myself, but like I literally would go to the taqueria in East Palo Alto, a few like 100 feet away, to go eat by myself to avoid feeling that way.
Right. Right.
And that's a feeling of not feeling welcome or included.
Hmm.
That's not to say that's what the entire experience was about, because there were
Right.
some amazing moments. We shipped Facebook Live
Yeah.
doing this, right? We put the news in the news feed for better or worse. We put music in the news feed. So there were some amazing things that happened while there, and I probably learned more inside of that time than I ever learned in any other period of time. Like the
Really.
advanced learning was huge because you got billions of people using this stuff, billions of people
Yeah.
using this stuff that you're working on, and you just don't run into that every day.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you kind of called it right before it all happened. Like your meeting that you mentioned, that you had with Mark Zuckerberg about like with all of this that's coming out comes responsibility, right? So you kind of called it. And so was that difficult to still go through with it, knowing that that was, I mean, because you didn't obviously know exactly what was going to come with it, but I mean, you still had an idea, right?
Yeah, well, and that's why they were hiring people from the industry,
Hmm.
right? Was to get those insights, because absent that, what was already happening is people were making decisions not understanding draft on impact.
Right.
So I thought I was just doing my job. And so for the listeners that aren't familiar with what you're talking about, this is kind of the opening chapter I think you're
Right.
referring to, right? Of
Yes.
the book. And in the chapter, it opens up. It's almost like when you watch a movie and it's like an action scene.
Yes.
That scene plays out, and then it's like 72 hours earlier. You go
Right.
back.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's one of those
Exactly.
deals. Um, only I was with Mark Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg and all
Yeah.
their people in his office.
Yes.
That was our action scene.
Yes.
But in the scene, I'm taking Mark and friends through the strategy for putting actual news in the news feed. And this is news articles from the New York Times, from CNN, from Fox, from right every publisher you can imagine. And what was happening was, we needed a strategy to do that in a meaningful way that was going to drive ultimately time spent by people in the newsfeed on that content. So this wasn't about cat pictures or pictures of the barbecue you just made. It was about the story, the content that came through celebrities, that came through news official sources, right?
Hmm.
So I started putting that strategy together, and we were running through slides, and I said something like, and if this was triggering to Mark Zuckerberg,
Yeah.
I said, look, if we are as half as good at this as we might be, at some point we're going to have a responsibility.
Yeah.
And he was like, why? He literally said it like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, because what we're doing here is we're essentially connecting people to the news sources they like and their friends to the news sources they like, and so on and so forth. Why? Comes again. I'm like, because at some point we're going to create the world's largest echo chambers.
Hmm.
If I'm the CNN guy and all I care about is that version of politics, that's all I'm going to think about. That's all I'm going to get. That's all I'm going to see.
Right.
And this notion of hearing the other side of the story isn't there anymore, and vice versa. I'm not
Right.
picking sides. It's just like wherever you may sit, like you're going to hear that version, and
Constant. Yes.
right, and that's what happened. And he kept saying why, and finally, this was an amazing moment actually, where Sheryl Sandberg, who was his chief operating officer at the time, and she was like my age, right? So she
Yeah.
she puts her hand on my forearm in only the way an official could do,
Yeah.
and she says, "Mark, let him finish." She looks at me and she goes, "I'm so glad you're here."
Oh.
And because it was like I was considering the draft on impact of what could
Hmm.
be, and suggesting that we might have a responsibility here. And I think Mark's disposition then, and it's not too different now, arguably, um, is we're just the plumbers and we're plumbing and piping the information that people want, right?
Right.
We're,
Right.
we're piping the information people want to the places they want it.
Hmm.
And that therein lies the conundrum.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's basically the algorithm, right? I mean, people are consistently liking what they like, and then that's all you see going forward for a while until you start liking other things, right? So
Yeah.
it's more on the political side is what you were discussing though on that, right?
Totally. And what's really interesting is how the mechanics of the place tend to operate accordingly as well. So for
Yeah.
example, we we would one of the reasons the algorithm got smarter over time, if you call it that, right?
Hmm.
It got more sophisticated in any way, is because we would get signal from people. So we would have thousands of human beings sitting in like Atlanta, I think is where it was, and they were rating each story in Facebook on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being the best. And if you rated the story of 5, it meant that it was a story that you wanted to hear and it had the right quality level and all of those things. And a
Yeah.
1 was the opposite of that. And
Right.
so product managers, sort of my peers in this company, they would start to optimize what they were building based on getting a maximum number of 5 rated stories in the feed,
Yeah.
right? So when you peel the onion back, these mechanics are just like in the blood, right?
Huh.
And
Yeah.
so you're gonna get echo chamber like outcomes this way. And I just think it's fascinating. And I'm not even trying to Monday morning quarterback.
Right.
Um, it's just kind of it is what it is, and it still is what it is, by the way.
Yes. Yeah. No, I feel like it's only gotten more that way, since social media has, continued to evolve. It's absolutely that way, and I mean, it's like you said, it's not entirely bad, but at the same time, like it creates these echo chambers for people, and it's just you get these like-minded people, and then creates these divides also, right? I mean, we've seen some huge divides in politics, and honestly, any kind of whatever you're into at the time, you're going to see both sides of it, and you're going to get into arguments. You see all these fights on social media, but it's because of, sometimes you're seeing the things that you want to see, right?
Well, think about your relationships with your own family or your own
Yes.
friends that you've had for a long time, neighbors even. I remember a world where people talked about these things, but they didn't talk about them this way.
Right.
They didn't talk about them with this level of demeanor.
Hmm.
It was a friendly conversation,
Yeah.
and now it's like, oh, people are just washing their hands. They're going the other way now and writing people off, and
Right.
that's a sad state, I think.
It is. Yeah. And and you'll get both sides. You'll get some people who say, "Oh, it's just a debate," but is it though? I mean, it feels like people are like relationships are being ruined over some of these arguments, right?
Right.
Yeah,
That's right.
no. Well, I'm glad that you got to that point where you knew on your own that it was time to go. I again, I'm not trying to give away too much from the book, but I love the reference of, you felt like the stoner in the corner.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
and
Everybody knows the stoners that used to smoke out behind the gym.
yes.
I was that guy,
Right,
although I
right.
didn't inhale. I'm kidding.
Right. Oh, I love it. No, that is amazing. And but again, I mean, you knew that you had enough experience where you were gonna, pick yourself up and go somewhere else. I mean, even without having a plan B at that time, it really feels like once you get to that level, it's just waiting for a phone call, right? I mean, you even talk about that. It's just you're waiting for a phone call of what's next in the pipeline. And but I mean, you took it to so many different levels after that, and I'm excited to really get into it. But because you've launched industry defining products across media, finance, and tech, how do you balance innovation with execution when the stakes and the timelines are sky high?
Yeah, one thing I've learned the hard way, because I think everybody assumes innovation is going to be the leading thing because it's the
Yes.
cooler sounding thing for sure.
Hmm.
And who wouldn't rather innovate than execute,
Oh man.
right?
Yeah.
Um, but what I find, especially when going into some of these classic industries like financial services,
Yeah.
that's been around a long time, that's not maybe the most natively tech, it's not a tech company to begin with, right? It was a bank first that was trying to use technology to do things now, right?
Right.
Uh, I think of like Goldman Sachs as an example.
Hmm.
Um, walking in there, I think I thought my job was to innovate. So I kind of walked in there thinking I'm gonna help people better understand and um, and improve their personal economy. Like that
Yeah.
was my worldview at that moment in time. I was like, I'm here to do this.
Hmm.
And I kind of preached that for a while. And I realized that while that's kind of what the job description alluded to and the recruiters told me,
Yeah.
um, what really mattered most was getting wins on the board,
Yeah.
right? And think of we're in the NBA playoffs right now. So think of a basketball game when you can't just sit around and run strategy all day. You got to get
Hmm.
points on the board. You got to get rebounds. You got to like move the ball around.
Right.
Things have to happen to give confidence to everybody else involved. And doing this kind of work is no different. And what I found was um, the machine, as it was at Goldman, really wanted me to be an executor more so than an innovator.
Hmm.
Um, here's the reality: is if you do the execution, you earn yourself the space to be the innovator. So
Yeah.
that's the trick in these things. Um, whereas if you anchor on innovation, sometimes you come across as though your head's in the clouds and
Hmm.
everybody's here working on the ground and you're up there thinking about this and that and the other. Although important and impressive, it's nothing like getting things over the line right now, right?
Hmm.
So I think whenever I step into an environment like that, um, no matter what they tell me, I'm always getting the first early wins to sort of set tempo.
Got it.
And only then do I earn the right to go down these bigger, dreamy roads. And even with those, I'll create iterations within the big thinking and say, okay, this is a great big idea. The personal economy is a great big idea, but what's the smallest win I can get toward that vision?
Yeah.
Remember, we launched these financial health tools that allow people to like monitor their credit score.
Hmm.
That's a version of that,
Right.
right? It's a step in that direction. And we got people using that on a regular basis, and we got people checking monthly because they were worried and trying to improve their credit score. And we that led to like giving them tips to how to actually improve it.
Hmm.
Actually paying the bill a few days earlier does help credit score, right?
Yeah.
For example.
Yes.
And so this gets you on that road. And if you can show these things and get these wins with people alongside, they become invested in them too.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you're recruiting people into a mission
Yeah.
without forcing them, right?
Right.
You
So is
want you
that
want people to want to be a part of it.
hmm So is that improving kind of the culture as well when you have those little momentum builders, those small wins like you mentioned? Is that helping pe build momentum and also building morale?
100%. I think when, you know, when I build teams and operate teams, I'm super open, maybe to a fault with them about what the score is. Like,
Hmm.
what are we doing? Why are we doing it? What's it mean? What does good look like? What does bad look like?
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes, and even when I've been in environments where maybe it's a little more political than ideal,
Yeah.
I'll tell the team that too. Hey, look, we're in a political environment here.
Yeah.
So we got to play it. We got to show well. We got to support each other. When so, when you're in a meeting with other people in the company and one of your teammates here um, is put on the spot and you see they don't have the answer at the ready, jump in and help them.
Right.
And it's not that you're doing it for them, but you're like, actually, I have a recent update on this,
Hmm.
and it's a way to get people in on it. And not that you want everybody playing politics, but you need them to be aware because these things matter. The performative, the performance art, the theater sometimes matters. And that's a little bit of art and science too. And if you do that well, you survive.
Hmm.
Um, and you live another day to bring the right culture to your team. Um, which I'll say this too about that. When you have a team that's got a good operating culture and an operating model, it's at a point where they do it for each other.
Yes.
And that's beautiful. And when you get that, you never want anything else. And it's an amazing thing to see when you empower people closest to the action to do their work, and you show them what the North Star actually is. You see what their place in that is, and they enable them to run with it, right?
Hmm.
And then they start doing things for each other, and they're accountable to each other each day. And it's less about the company supervising the workers. It's more
Yeah.
about everybody's on a mission to do something important.
Right.
When I was at Univision, we were bringing the Spanish language population their stories on streaming video. Like
Hmm.
that was a mission because it
Right.
didn't exist. Like Netflix has some stuff in Spanish, but doesn't have all the novelas. It doesn't have
Yeah.
Lucha Libre. It doesn't have like Noticias, 24.
Yeah.
It doesn't have any. So like we were like bringing the stories of our people to them. And that was a mission that we were on and we could all get behind. And I just think that's really important. And it's such a different way of working. And now the trade-off though, sometimes inside of a company, if you're that part of the company that does business that way,
Hmm.
other people want to be on your team from other
Right.
departments because
Yes.
they want to be a part of it too. So then inevitably there can be this us and them dynamic
Mm.
whereby now I have a peer in a different part of the company who maybe isn't as fond of me because people on his team are praising how we work over here.
Yes, exactly.
So that's the watch out.
Hmm. I mean, it's getting your team to work towards a common goal, right?
Yeah,
And
that's right.
then obviously they're working for each other rather than just themselves. And how much nicer is that in a work environment too, when you have people coming to work together and you know that there's someone's out there to help you out rather than just, you're having to go to, some people like to work by themselves, but at the same time, it's nice working in teams and you can accomplish so much more when you do so, right?
Right. And by the way, the stoners we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
they wanted to be a part of something too.
Right. You're right. Absolutely. Yeah. So, you talk a lot about having high EQ, right? And it's great to have those, the when you can look at and really care for your team, but you also in one of your takeaways in the book, you talk about high IQ driven and authentic leadership may not thrive in environments that prioritize rapid execution, hierarchical norms, right? So some companies you can't technically have that as a leadership style, right? Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. And that's kind of where I was going at the tail end of the last part of the conversation, which is when you're doing it, but it's not valued
Yes.
as much. Um, this, by the way, is something that happened to Facebook as well, whereby my immediate team loved it. And they're like,
Hmm.
oh my God, this dude's the best boss I've ever had. Like it was like we were like we all loved each other. It was like great. But other groups didn't value that way um of the team operating.
Hmm.
They were much more um res they resided much more in the data and in the intellect aspect of it, not the emotional aspect of it.
Got
And
it.
it just so happens if one's strength is emotional, you know, quotient and emotional sort of credibility and bringing that along, um, it needs to be honored, but it's not always going to be that way, right?
Hmm.
And so what I tended to do in certain environments is kind of stopped talking about it.
Yeah.
For example, I had a boss uh, who didn't manage that way.
Okay.
Uh, so when I met with him one on one and we talked about the status of all things in my area, I didn't talk about how I was bringing the team along and how well they were doing and how happy they were about I just focused. I had to focus on different things, right? I had to
Hmm.
focus on, the throughput,
Right. Yeah.
uh, how many things got done and what metrics got moved to what degree.
Mm.
So you almost have to the degree that's important to you, you almost have to make that your private life, your private work life in
Sure.
a way. Because sometimes it's an acquired taste, and some people, and when people don't have it, they don't know it,
Hmm.
right? And so
Yeah.
you can't expect somebody that doesn't know something. They're not bad for not being like you,
Yeah,
right? They
exactly.
just don't know the difference.
Yeah. Nope, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's incredible to see, just getting to talk to you, but also reading your book and seeing all the successes that you have had. Does it ever feel like everything you're a part of turns into success, like in your in all of your past? And I know we talked about, I read your book. I know there were some things that didn't pan out. What was one of them? The project fan, right? That was one of them that was that ended up not turning into the way that you would have liked it to. But at the same time, I still feel like you still had wins everywhere you were at. You still had takeaways that were still wins everywhere that you were at.
Yeah, well, in what the example you brought up is when I was at Live Nation Entertainment, and
Hmm.
I was brought in um, to rethink and reinvent the live event experience from end to end. And although in the book I called it Project Fan, the real code name was called Super Fan.
Got it.
Um, and I still have the prototype on my phone to this day. And even though it didn't work, and for those listening, it's not as if the product didn't work.
Right.
My effort in the company didn't work. The company didn't really want to create this thing that I thought was the going to change events
Correct.
forever. And that's a bigger story. But what worked was I brought the craft to the company and I rallied people, and people were able to see a new way of doing things. And
Hmm.
so there are people that worked with me there that went on. Some of them stayed, some of them
Yeah.
went other places, and they're carrying forward this way of working that they didn't have before. Before they were all about like outputs,
Yeah.
and I like to be about the outcomes. And
Yes.
that's it's a funny play on the two words, obviously, but and I think people have written books about that topic in and of itself. But it's the difference between just keeping busy and making things happen.
Mm.
That's the difference. But yeah, it doesn't always work, and it's a lonely place when it doesn't work. And I think I've over the years had to develop a little bit of hardening to be to be mindful of, is this, can what I do happen here
Yeah.
or not?
Yes.
As far as the advisory that I've been building during this year, I advise a handful of companies, and one of them is like a perfect picture perfect story of like full of outputs, not the outcomes. I'm helping them bring it, um, but not enough of the leaders want it because it's too big of a change for them,
Mm.
and it's too big of a power give up to the
Yeah.
broader teams. And this is usually where it sits. It usually sits with power struggles and power dynamics.
Yeah.
In long time organizations that are led by like general managers, they like to generally manage,
Yes.
it turns
Yeah.
out, right? Uh,
Yeah.
they don't want these product and technology people coming in and telling them how to do their thing.
Hmm.
That's not what it's about for them. They've worked hard to get to that point, and so you're kind of up against that, more than anything else. And so it comes down to like if your job is to be the change agent, boy, you have to have air cover to be
Yeah.
successful at it.
Right. It did seem like a lot of the things that you mentioned in the book were a lot of the reasons things didn't pan out were because of were highly political. It was more along the lines of what you just mentioned. Not to get too deep into the project that you were just mentioning, but do you think with the evolution of AI that now, like especially how AI is now, I know it's always been around, but how it is now, would it have changed the trajectory of that project? Because I know, again, I'm not trying to get too deep into it, but gathering all the information for the people, how they're getting their ticketing information and what they like, do you think AI would have assisted with that?
It definitely could have played a role because what we were building was essentially a personalized live event experience, and
Yeah.
AI could have been the electricity
Right.
that powers that.
Yes.
Um, I think back then we were probably calling it machine learning
Hmm.
or so. That
Yeah.
was more of the term and data modeling. But yeah, the use of AI would have would have would have absolutely accelerated that.
Yeah.
And it would have taken it from being an experience that required, here's the difference. Back then, I was going to require you as a fan to come into this app and tell me your preferences.
Right.
You're going to import your Spotify library, your SoundCloud, whatever you got, whatever your music library is, whatever your sports teams are. You're going to tell me what those are. You're going to tell me what venues you like to go to, where you like to sit,
Yeah.
what you'd like to spend to go see shows. And only based on that information am I going to give you push notifications based on these events becoming true.
Right.
And so what I could have done is built a, basically a language model
Yeah.
housing all of that data, and I could have been querying that and using that as the mechanism to deliver it. And I probably could have built it, inside of a couple of weeks. And while everybody was arguing about whether we should do it or not, I could have just built it and put it
Yeah.
in their hands internally
Yes.
and let them
Exactly.
just try it. And maybe it would have had a different outcome.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. Well, I do appreciate you touching on that. It kind of went through my mind, based on what was that, 7 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. But yeah, I mean, to now, how all that information is just gathered automatically. Now it's just could easily have turned into something like you were mentioning. So no, I do appreciate you touching on that. So you talked about, what you're doing now, so after leaving television, it's you're doing build or you started build something. So what's the difference now that you're doing compared to what you were doing before? Are you going as a consultant? Are you helping, are companies calling you in to help them assist with building projects? How does it work?
Well, and I'll tell you in a year or so if it's working or not. But the idea was, I've been doing this as an operator in companies for so long
Right.
now. Um, could I get more done if I'm consulting across a portfolio of companies?
Right.
Um, and I don't know the answer to that yet. That's part of my hypothesis. And
Yeah.
I look, I published the book just a few months ago, and it's so far helping to bring a little bit more awareness than I had, and it's helping me talk about this practice.
Hmm.
Um, and um, you know, time will tell. I've so far I've helped an AI based financial brokerage.
Mm,
Um, I've been doing that for the last few months. There's an AI health thing going on that
yeah.
I'm working on. Um, there's a bunch of stuff that's in varying stages. Um, I do wonder, will I be able to get my fix doing this or not?
Yeah.
Um, because because what I'm finding so far, and it's so early innings, but one of the things I'm pressure testing is, can I get the fix I need and have the impact I need to have without owning it?
hmm
And you really only own it when you're in the
When you're
saddle.
in it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And can I play the advisor, um, or is that not enough to have the impact?
hmm
I think that will in some parts depend on the clients I attract.
Yeah.
Uh, I like to believe if somebody knows my background and knows at least what the book's about, um, the chances are pretty favorable. But
Right.
uh, but we'll see. I'm also spending some time because some friends of mine who are in the kind of business are encouraging me to dabble in a screenplay edition of this.
Oh,
So
really?
forcing me to think about, like, what does the series look like?
Yeah. Oh,
So
that
that could be
is.
fun too. I
Yeah,
kind of I kind
absolutely.
of told myself I'd give myself 2025
Mm,
to play here,
yeah.
and so we'll see. It's still early. We're in June,
I was
early
gonna
June.
say, but does it feel like it's flying by already?
It does. It's it's
Yeah.
it's fast.
Yeah.
Um, and I've been traveling like all over the place too, and doing talks and doing podcasts like this,
Yeah.
and it's been very busy, and I feel blessed to like be doing that. Um, it's fun to talk about it, and
hmm
I met an old boss in Miami last week at his house on the bay in Miami. It was this beautiful spread, and we're sitting there having a mineral water in the heat. And he's like, "So I heard you wrote a book. What's the book about?" And I was like, "Dude, it's about everything we do,
Yeah.
you know?" And it's kind of like, this sort of it's in most parts like about, you'll never know everything you need to know about even yourself until and unless you embark on building something.
Yes.
That's because that's when the stuff comes out of the woodwork.
Right.
Um, the real, you get to know what you're made of, right?
hmm
But I think in the lead that's maybe buried in the book is like, for all the things you might build, the most important one is the team and the culture of that team around you.
Right. Right.
Because that can win just about anything.
Yes.
If you don't have that, the odds aren't in your favor.
Right. Yeah. If you don't have it a foundation, then you're gonna struggle. Right.
And that's kind of what lands at the reflective
Mm.
prologue at the end of the book is like, geez, in hindsight, sure, the book's about building a lot of these things,
Yeah.
but it's the one thing that really matters.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
It had to have been fun getting to reflect on your life though, right? I mean, did you ever imagine growing up LA, spending time in Switzerland, and then moving to Paso Robles, I believe is what it was, right? Is where you grew up. Did you ever imagine growing up there and thinking this is what your life was going to be like? I mean, you could never have imagined this, right?
No, but I did imagine other things.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to play in a band and go on the road. That's
Yes.
that's what I thought I was going to be doing. And by the way, on the screenplay,
Yeah.
right? The,
Yep.
the opener of the screenplay, and we're just making this up right now, but like it's something like, it's my current day voice,
Okay.
and I'm in a nightclub in like New York City playing with my Latin jazz band,
Yeah.
and I'm saying something like, I never knew I always knew it was going to be about the music, but not about the music in this way. And
Mm.
like the story starts to unravel. And
Yeah.
so it's almost like when Ray Liotta's like his voice is in Goodfellas, you
Yes.
know? It's
Right.
like one of those things.
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought I was just going to play music for a living. And
Yeah.
I think as part of one of the stories that I'm sure you read in the book is like, my wife in college became pregnant, and then it became like, okay, well, let's support this family, and let's do, we love each other. Let's just keep going, and that's kind of
hmm
what happened. And for those of you that are listening, I mean, maybe Dylan, you can see I've got instruments in the background here.
Yep.
This is a music space, and in addition to the book and many companies, I've also recorded like a dozen albums in here,
You're right.
in this space. So I still was able to do that, which I think is a bonus part of the story for me, for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, are you still a part of a band?
Yeah. I have a Latin jazz and salsa band called Yellow House Orchestra,
Mm.
which I love. The great Doug Beavers is a great trombonist who's the musical director of that. I have an original pop band called the Sunday Review. We put an album out just, I guess it was about 9 months ago now. So it's on Spotify and all that.
Awesome.
It's basically me and uh, a designer that I've been working with a long time. I mentioned him in the book,
Hmm.
uh, and it's the rhythm section from Hall and Oates. So it's like a fabulous band.
Man.
Uh, so still doing those things, and I think this year I aim to do another record as well. So
Yeah.
I think these are important things to do, to pursue in your life, to have these
Yes.
things that are you,
Hmm.
because it allows the rest of it to come together.
Right. I love that you peppered that in throughout, and that wasn't through your life, is that you still had music as part of your life throughout, your career, and even taking a little bit of a break. And then, like you even mentioned, you thought that you were going to go on tour. One of your buddies ends up just quitting, and it just completely changed the trajectory of your life, but throughout, like you said, I love that that's going to be the beginning of your screenplay because that is truly, throughout the book, it talks about it, how you did keep music throughout your life.
Well, what's fun is on the audio book edition.
Yeah.
Uh, so each chapter has music bookending like the beginning and end,
Oh, really?
and it's original music each time, but it's original music from that period of time,
Oh, wow.
right? So when
Yeah.
I'm going back 20 years, it's the 20 years ago music,
Yes.
which is super fun. That
Yeah.
and that's sort of like an Easter egg thing for people like me that get weird about that stuff.
Right, right. No, I think it's amazing. I'm gonna have to listen to it now. I already read it, so now I have to listen to that part.
You have to
No,
listen
that's
to me for 8.5 hours.
yeah. That's all right. We just did it for almost an hour, right?
Yeah.
No, this has been amazing, Michael. I do really appreciate you joining today. I feel like we could talk for hours about many different topics, but I did want to ask, how can listeners connect with you and pick up your book, Build Something?
Yeah, so probably the best place to go is on the web. We're at build-something.com. And that's where I house everything in and around, the advisory, the book, the various press and the podcast. I pull everything together there.
Yeah.
And there's links to go get it. Of course, it's on Amazon. It looks like the edition you have is the Amazon one, and there's another one that went out through Ingram that
Okay.
that has, the more of the sleeve around it, that
Yep.
edition, and the pictures are color. I wanted to put out a couple of different editions just to given the different options, and but the audio is kind of was my favorite part about it, my most pleasingly favoring part about it. What I didn't realize, and this being a music guy, right?
Yeah.
I didn't realize on the audio how many like little things were going to sneak in that I
Yeah.
had to edit out. Like I've got like you can't see it here, but I have like a wine refrigerator over here, right?
Yeah.
And it starts humming at a certain point,
Yeah.
or the AC comes on, or like a dog is barking outside. I have a chicken coop over here. There's chickens making so I had to edit all that stuff out. Thank
Mhm.
goodness with AI and Adobe's AI suite, it was sounding like a commercial now.
Yeah.
Using Adobe's AI
Yeah.
suite, I
Yeah.
was able to
Yep.
filter out but very quickly get that stuff out of the mix. But yeah, build-something.com, and I'm on all the social medias. Like I'm on IG. My IG is I'm certified, like my name's CERDA five.
Hmm. Oh,
Uh,
nice. Yes.
yeah, and that's I'm that on Twitter as well. But you could find me on Facebook and LinkedIn. Of course, you might have a more of a professional audience listening in case I'm on LinkedIn there as well. So invite folks to connect, and I would love to hear if folks are reading this, what their impressions are, and what their feedback is, because I think that's an important part of this process.
Yes, absolutely. No, I highly recommend the book, and I'll make sure that all those links are in the show notes as well to make it a little bit easier accessible for the listeners. And, because I think that this is important. I mean, for me, that book was a page turner. I'm telling you, I think that was the fastest I've ever read a book. I was telling you in the green room, I really enjoyed it. So I really do hope the listeners pick up their copies and, can really see the story and the amazing story that you've had. And you continue to write. You continue to write it.
Let's see what's next, right?
Yes, exactly. All right, Michael. Well, this has been amazing again. Thank you so much for joining me and the listeners today.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.